talk to me as a woman in property, not just as Chris and Mary who do property together, which you do. How do you deal with the tradies and how do you deal with the brokers and everybody else in this male-dominated world?
I've had experience, especially with male builders. I'll always remember the incident that happened that changed our lives. It has been an amazing journey, just that first property that has helped me overcome my fear, and that has helped me teach other people overcome their fear. How much learning you do on your first property is just amazing. My biggest fear was who's going to rent this property and whether going to damage the property, and to overcome all them steps initially was amazing.
What would you say to women out there that are wondering whether they can invest in properties, worrying whether it's too late?
I'll go to the two extremes. So
are you feeling stuck in the 9-to-5 grind, wondering whether there's more to your life than the daily routine? In this episode of A Wealthy Life, I'm joined by Mary Selwood. She's a powerhouse property investor, a developer, a coach, and the co-founder of the Belfast Property Meet and Property Success University. Now, Mary started out balancing a demanding job as a nurse. She had a young family, and yet she still found the courage to step into one of the UK's most male-dominated industries, property. She faced her fears, her doubts, and a lot of unknowns. And she not only survived, she's actually thrived in this industry. Today, we're going to be diving into her journey about how she overcame those fears to actually build the confidence and carve out a space for herself in a world where women are often underestimated. Now, whether you're curious about property or thinking about leaving your 9-to-5, maybe you're just looking for inspiration about how you can reclaim your own path, Mary's story is going to show you what's possible when you take that first brave step. So my name's Vicki Wusche. This is A Wealthy Life. Welcome, Mary Selwood. How are you? And lovely to see you.
absolutely great and amazed to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Vicky.
If you're watching on YouTube, recognise Mary. She's part of Mary and Chris, who did a podcast for us a couple of weeks back. So make sure that you go back, and I'll put the links in the show notes. But when Mary and I have been talking both off air and as part of other podcasts, Mary's really been sharing her truth about starting out, potentially even standing out in property, but very definitely staying strong in a space that still somewhat underestimates women. And so whether you're curious about property or you're ready to take on your first development, I wanted this conversation to really change the way that you think about risk, confidence, opportunity. I want you to start thinking about, is this for me? And if property is not for you, what can you learn from Mary's experience of battling and being successful in a predominantly male-dominated world and apply that to your own success? What traits can you see in Mary that you can learn from? And of course, if this is the right journey for you, then you're going to love the questions that we're going to come up with next and our conversations, so that you're going to be able to learn how you can take that first step for yourself. So, as I've already said, thank you. I really appreciate your time being here. I want to drill you on some questions. And of course, I know you, I know some of the answers, but I'd like to sort of like dig in and share them for the listeners, if you don't mind. We know that your background was as a nurse, and certainly in the early days, you were still holding down your job as a nurse full time, which you know is demanding emotionally and physically. And you had a young daughter. I can't believe how old she is now, but back in the day, she was a young daughter. and of course, you had this madcap husband who thought that investing in property was a good idea. How were those early days for you?
Scary. Absolutely scary. Very fearful. You know, everyone talks about fear. Fear is unbelievable. For me, it was because I was kind of a very routine person, a little bit OCD type of person. So everything had to fit in a box. And when Chris decided that, you know, we were going to invest in property, initially it was just as a pension pot for Chris. So it was buy one property, get a tenant to pay the rent, maybe have a little cash flow, but to pay off that property. So at a later date, that was a pension pot for Chris. And honestly, it took him forever to convince me to do that. Forever and ever to convince me. And I probably wasn't convinced. I went along with the ride, but I wasn't convinced at the time. And because I was so fearful, I had to learn all the little bits, you know. I know now you think, oh my goodness, how much learning you do on your first property is just amazing. And so learning, you know, the mortgage side of things, you know, what we needed to do regarding the legal side of things, you know, income versus expenses, how much cash flow you were going to be left with. Was it going to be a repayment mortgage? Was it going to be an interest-only mortgage? And the reasons for that and the term and all of that, you know, we did a light refurb at that time. My biggest fear was who's going to rent this property and, you know, whether they're going to damage the property and all the other things that goes along with that. So to overcome all them steps initially was amazing. And it really was the foundations and the grinding me to the ground as to, oh, when we had it done and people rented the property, that first property has never been void since 2005. Never, never. So it has been an amazing journey, just that first property that has helped me overcome my fear. And that has helped me teach other people overcome their fear.
Absolutely. But can I dig into that then? Because
Yes.
I often will speak to couples, or I'll maybe speak to the husband and the wife is the fearful one. And I have my own perspectives, both as a woman and as having spoken to a lot. What were you scared of when Chris came up with this harebrained idea?
Because it was outside the norm. I didn't really know anyone that was investing in property back in 2005. I thought we couldn't afford it, number one. And he wanted for us to get started in property. We hadn't got a pot of money. We hadn't got a deposit. So it was a case of my biggest fear was taking equity a little bit. And it was just a little bit of equity back then out of our own house to put down on our first investment property. That to me was a scary bit. And what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't rent? And what if we're left paying a second mortgage on our property? That was the biggest fear.
Yeah. So it is all of those unknowns, isn't it?
Yes.
But if we were to sit down now, obviously very easily with hindsight, we could actually work through and I'm sorry, folks, I'm going to mention the spreadsheet word, but you could sit down with the spreadsheet and you can go, okay, so if I take money out, if I remortgage my house to release equity, how much is that going to cost me on that mortgage? And then I'm going to put that money over here. And if I do this, then I could make that much money. What is the risk? What would stop me? So you could work through all of that, but you didn't. You actually just had to sort of like hang on to your faith in Chris for a bit.
It's probably back then there was very little education. People didn't really work from spreadsheets back then. And people didn't have the knowledge or the know-how to explain all of that. Whereas nowadays, good coaches, good mentors will guide you through all of that.
Yeah. I've got to remember 2005 was the dark ages.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And no one structured you know, in our last podcast, I had a wee bit of a mind blank. I mean, regarding tax wasn't an issue either. There was no tax structure. We didn't think of the way we were going to structure our investment properties. That didn't really come into it at all. Just winging it for a while, weren't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's also to do with the market and the products that were available. I mean, there was no such thing as a company buy to let. It was, you know, you borrowed the money personally and that was it.
That's it. That's right.
And a lot of people I mean, that's how we got in. We remortgaged our house to release equity. We took a lot out to get going, you know, so it's interesting, isn't it? But I wonder why I wasn't scared. Like out of the two of us, you've got Chris had the idea and then sold it to you. And I wouldn't say that Bob was scared. Bob didn't understand because I had the idea so much like Chris did. And I had to sort of explain it to him.
Yeah.
And I think he probably just did like you did. He came along on that journey in those early days. And then you learn on the job. Because I think there's also something here, isn't there, about there were things that you were scared of. But did you know how to ask the question. Did you know that what you were worried about was your return on your investment? Did you know what you were worried about was your cash flow? Or you just had these fears that you couldn't put words necessarily to?
That's exactly it.
It's interesting, isn't it? That we can't learn without language, because without the language, we can't ask the question. And yet there are some areas in life where they have created a whole language around it that make it this obscure cloud that we can't see into us, because it's all about investment. These are the words of investing, aren't they? These are the words of finance, and they are just making life that much harder for us to understand money.
Yeah, exactly. But when you think back then, you know, the mortgage broker, he just sold you the product that
Paid him the best commission.
Well, yes, exactly. It wasn't regarding the structure of your portfolio. It was like, yes, it was exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, now we understand that there is a thing that, you know, your broker must be whole of market, and that in those days they used the phrase tied, didn't they? They were just really the hand of some lender, and that's all they were flogging you. So
Yeah.
very
Yes.
funny, very funny.
So it has advanced a long way.
It has, but I think also not because they've advanced, but because us as customers have started to question what's going on, and then been able to ask those questions and gone, well, I don't know that I want it like that. I want it some other way. And I think that's how mortgage products have, I mean, don't get me wrong, the lenders will have seen a gap in the market and know that they can make money from it. They don't ever offer anything that they're not going to make money out of, but that they've been able to see that gap that we are demanding and then fill it for us. So if we go back to sort of the properties then, all right, so you've done number one, and I know from the last podcast that you released equity and you started that. When did you really start getting to the stage where you were taking on the developments? What happened there? Where was that bit? Because we know that Chris doesn't have quite the same passion for property that you do. When did your passion ignite, and when did you really think that you were the one to start? Were you still working? Something around that part of your life?
So initially we bought buy-to-lets, and that's kind of just what we did, bought something. It was buy, refurbish, refinance to grow up a buy-to-let portfolio. And it wasn't until the incident that happened that kind of changed our lives.
You'll have to listen to the last episode to hear that story. So tough, haha.
So that was basically in 2009 that happened. And we were at that time getting property education as well. So for people, we started investing in 2005, and we paddled our own canoe until 2009 before we got property education. So hence made a lot of mistakes in the first 4 years. And it wasn't until that incident happened that, as we said in the last podcast, is that it changed us greatly. Now I can look back and think it changed us greatly in a good way, both as people, you know, as people personally, and also regarding our mindset and our growth and development and all of that, everything about our well-being. Yeah, that started I suppose I grew a lot mentally, that I thought I'm a very shy person. I've come out of my shell a lot, a lot. It was that spurred the change in me.
And a couple of fights, maybe?
Yeah, I just wanted to, yeah, it was a fight. It was like survival. It was survival. And then I realized I've got a lot to give. There's something happened that I just realized I have a lot to give, and I have a lot to do, and I want to enjoy what's within me to help others and to help myself and to help others, and I want to make it happen.
And that was it. And then you gave up your job shortly after?
I started slowly. I started reducing my hours at work, because I'm not a firm believer of giving up your job straight away and diving in, as all social media gurus encourage people to do. And again, I suppose as me as a person, I want to do things gradually and have security and less risk. So I started reducing my hours at work, and got more involved in what we were doing in property, and it was, and you are aware of the development that changed our lives, really, buying that big building that had 6 apartments. That was the biggest challenge of our lives because we hadn't got the money to buy this building or to refurb this building. But it was the biggest challenge, and we've never done work to that extent before, but it was the biggest challenge and the greatest challenge. And it
It's
has
an amazing building.
success. Yeah, the greatest success. And that just changed our life, both financially, but also in our ability and our knowledge and our experience. Yeah.
And now you've got the PSU, and you spend a lot of time working with others as well as doing your own developments and everything else. So in your role as a coach, and I think as a female role model in property, because whether you think of yourself like that or not, you are, can we talk about, and I like getting into this, and I know it makes it difficult when you're a coach because it's then almost like politically incorrect, but I do think pulling out the differences is the way that we learn. We can just learn something by describing it, or we can learn something by going, well, this looks that way and this looks that way, and you can see the differences. And that's how, and I like to learn through the differences. So thinking about the women that you coach and you mentor into property versus the males, because obviously some you'll do that are couples and then that makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
But sort of thinking of the women versus the men, what would you say the traits of the women that are different to the traits that you see in the men? Can you unpack that somewhere?
The ladies tend to plan more and follow the plan, action the plan, and tend to ask for help more. Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask for help. And take feedback better, probably. Probably. I do find them more determined, follow through the plan and action it. Whereas gentlemen or men tend to, I'm not saying that they don't follow a plan, but they tend to sway a little bit, oh, my friend's doing, I'm going to get my friend to do the electrics, and I'm going to get my somebody else to do the plumbing. And I'm thinking, okay, but your mates, it never works out when it's mates. Never, ever works out. When it's family and friends doing work, never works out. Really does. But you can't tell them that, if you know what I mean.
Whereas even when you do tell them, they won't listen. So.
No. Whereas you tell a woman, they tend to take on board what you're saying and think, that kind of makes sense, and kind of follow your plan a little bit better. Yeah, it's interesting. Women are very determined to succeed. I think to succeed. I don't know whether it's a maternal thing or whatever. We kind of follow the plan. I think that's what.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when I think about like my male versus my female clients, just ignoring all the couples in the middle, but for the men, they are driven by the money. Their role is to make money. That's what they're doing. They're there to make money. And that means cut corners if you want to cut corners, because then you'll make more money, or go bigger. I need to get bigger because if I go bigger, I'll make more money. Go faster because I'll make more money. So it's all of those sorts of things driving them on the other side. Whereas it's not so obvious that it is this with the women, but I refer to the women as often coming from a nurturing perspective. So in terms of their traits and their values, they're either bringing up a family, or they're thinking about their home, or they're thinking about as a single unit, because there's a lot more single women that don't have children now that are also thinking about their own personal financial bubble that they're in, that they've got to provide for themselves, which is new. That's really the last 4 or 5 years I've felt that come through. The women very prepared to look for the risks, whereas the men don't look for the risks at all. They're looking for the success on the other side of the risk, and they're just ignoring the risk. And if they bump into one, they'll deal with it. Whereas the women want to go, what are the risks in front and how can I plan to get round them? And then they go. And it's almost as if they're the hare and the tortoise. And I'm not going to say which one is the hare and which one is the tortoise. but it's almost as if they've got different strategies for the race. But at the end of it, they're both achieving things. But it's interesting to know the different approaches, because now I was saying to you offline that I've really got into this year thinking about women and their the financial education, financial mindset, because so many women that I speak to just really don't know the opportunities that are out there in the same way that men do, because the conversations they have are different. And that's why I really wanted to get you to come back and talk to me as a woman in property, not just as Chris and Mary who do property together, which you do, but also, you're taking on the bigger role now that sort of Chris has wandered off to his football. And so it is you in property, and to really sort of pull this out, because I think it's helpful for women to understand that they are different. And I remember back in the day, like when we first started and I was first doing property education, people said, oh, you need to help women invest in property. And I wish I had listened, because I might have been ahead of the crowd then. But I think it was also the way it was said. It was more like, they're there. You just help women invest in property because no men will listen to you. And so then I was, like, well, stuff you. I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to help men become successful. I'm not going to have myself limited by you saying I can only work with women. Took it completely the wrong way. Yeah. Or maybe it was meant that way. I don't know. Don't really care. But now, and I used to say, but I don't want to do women only classes, because we have to work in a male world. And if you put me in a bubble with only women, and the training that we did, there was a women's only group, and I don't know that helps.
No.
Because if you work only with women, how do you deal with that male builder? And I have spoken to some other women in property, and how do you deal with the men build? Because most of the trades are men. How do you deal with the tradies, and how do you deal with the brokers and everybody else in this male dominated world? How do you gain their respect and deal with, if you get it, any sort of dismissiveness?
I tend to work with people I want to work with. Okay, in the past, I've had experience, especially with male builders. I'll always remember we did a beautiful house, a residential house for sale to flip. A beautiful house. And, we were snagging at this stage, and it was a contractor that did all the work. And the skirting, the full length of skirting, it was split into, he had joined it. And I just thought, oh my God, this house is just beautiful. And that's the first thing that my eye is drawn to. No need to. He just
cut it to make it easier.
And I pointed out in a nice way. He went through me. It really went through me about it. And only Chris was there, and Chris got a little angry about it. But I'll always remember that. That always stuck in my head. And really from that day onwards, I thought to myself, I'm only going to work with people that I align to. And I must say, I'm very, very, very lucky. Now, along the way, there's been a couple of bumps, but in the last number of years, we've worked with people that are amazing. Absolutely. All the male builders have been amazing. And I suppose maybe they respect me because I've knowledge and I've skills and I've experience, that they probably respect me more. And it's all to do with respect and communication and knowing what you want from them, and then knowing what they want from you. But for someone starting out, that's going to be a problem. For a lady starting out on her own with a certain type of builder,
yeah,
I think a male builder could be an issue. The nice thing about our group, we share our trades. So we kind of have 3 lots of contractors, so we share them out with our community. It's around our ladies being protected, but for someone starting out, that can be a problem.
Yeah, I think you have to interview your trades and connect with whoever your builder is going to be. Don't get too caught up and be too trusting, because I don't know about you, but I've had builders that I thought were really nice, that I thought I was friends with, and they've been charming, and actually what they've done is they've robbed me, and I have twice made that mistake to very painful consequences.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can find yourself various tradies that you work with that you have a mutual respect. I mean, in this day and age, there is no reason for anyone in any trade, male or female, to look down on anybody else. This is a customer, and whether the customer is male or female, they need to be just, treated with respect. If you don't feel like you're getting that, this is
Yeah.
going to be your money. You're the customer. Don't pick them. Move on and pick someone else.
Yes.
And it might be worth paying £1,000 more to get someone that you have a good relationship, a good trusting relationship. And therefore, when you go back and you say, don't cut the skirting boards in half, they go, yeah, I know, sorry.
Yeah.
Or I could have made that join better. Or yeah, you're right, that socket is slightly worn. I missed that one. I'm very sorry. Or, that's the thing about snagging. Snagging is such a contentious issue because it's really pointing out all the faults that they have. And if they're any good, they'll have gone round and pre-snagged themselves. So they really want you to just wander in and praise them about how wonderful everything is. So when you do find snags.
Yeah. And it's funny, Vicky, a number of years I hadn't met, that was the end of that builder. And a number of years later, he has messaged me on LinkedIn and said, I've been following you and I am just blown away by what you've gone on to achieve. And I applaud you. And I thought,
Oh,
my goodness, I can't believe that.
how nice.
Yeah, how nice. Yeah.
Wow. That shows huge for him there, doesn't it?
Yes. And it was, it was hard at that time. It could have been, a nasty conversation at that time, but
Yeah. Oh, well, excellent.
yeah, so
And you touched on community there, and you said about sharing your tradies with your community. How important do you think community is for women in the trade? And do you think they should go to women-only groups, or should being a strong word?
I love the mix of male and female together. I really do, because we're all different. Women have different traits as well within the female world, and male have different traits within the male world. No, we need each other.
Yeah, because even if we're all women, we'd then be missing all the skills that the men have, and the men will be missing all the skills the women have.
And I think sometimes the men need to see that, the women are capable of achieving what they're capable of achieving, and, sometimes give them a kick up the backside to, oh my goodness, I can't believe she's achieving all this on her own. Sometimes, some men might say, oh, I'm the breadwinner. I work really hard, finding it hard to find time to show up at different events, property related events, or come on the Zoom calls. And I'm thinking, I know many single parents that show up all the time, to all the events, all the Zoom calls, all the site visits, and are doing all the deals.
They're doing it.
Excuses. Females make excuses, males make excuses. So we need to kind of come together and keep each other accountable.
Yeah.
Help one another and not be egoistic either.
Yeah. That can be the challenge, can't it? But
yeah, it can be. But on both sides, women can be egoistic too.
Yes, you're right, they can. What would you say to women out there that are wondering whether they can invest in property? So either they are slightly younger in their journey, they're pre-children or early children, whether they're single or whether they're in a relationship, thinking about, can I cope with this? And then secondly, to women who are maybe at a stage where their kids are starting to grow up, or maybe they haven't had kids and they're thinking about their pensions and then worrying whether it's too late. So am I too early? Can I cope with everything I got on my plate? Or am I too late? Have I missed it all? What would you say to any woman who is thinking about investing in property?
It's never too late. Absolutely, it's never too late. Ideally, we would all like to do it when we were younger, especially if you want to grow a portfolio, but it's never too late. So I'll go to the two extremes. So, for example, our daughter is 21 and she's bought her first property, first residential, which she's going to rent a room, which she's allowed to. And then when she doesn't want that property anymore, I've taken one step ahead and I got planning on that property for a mini HMO. So when she decides hopefully meets someone at some stage and she wants to move into a bigger property, that property becomes her investment property. And hopefully it's the start of her investment journey. And, you know, it's kicked off a lot of, questions for her. She's a busy young lady. She's doing her apprenticeship accountancy, so she's working and learning. She's also crazy Irish dancer that competes all over the world and trains very hard. She's always asking me questions, Mum, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? And she says to me yesterday, I need to sit down and do a spreadsheet of my income, my outgoings, my cash flow, and I need to have all the dates. And she said, I'm going to devise all the spreadsheet to make it happen. She says, I need to know, because she's very much a control person, a little, again, a wee bit OCD from me, I think. So it's never too early. And it's strange, not that it's strange, that's probably not the right word. She's gone on to, and she's not boasting about her first property at 21. She ain't. But probably I'm boasting more because I'm so proud.
You're a proud mum, of course you are.
But it has encouraged some of her friends to start thinking about doing the same and are asking me for help.
Fabulous.
And I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, isn't this amazing?
Yes. And that's the thing, isn't it? That I can still remember when I was young. So many young people, there's so much going on in your life, and everything, particularly if you then look at social media, is about how you're supposed to be out partying and drinking, and then you've got to meet friends and you've got to build your career, and there's so much going on in your life. And like we said earlier on, if you then don't have the language to ask the questions, you don't get the answers that could be the thing that then changes your life. But if you were to then say to somebody who's like 21, 22, 23, what are you doing towards your pension? They'd be going like, oh, look, I'm 21 and whatever. But if only you could start sooner, and don't think of it like, oh, it's my pension, it's money I can't have, it's going away. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and she was talking about how one of her friends, they get money paid into their pensions as a way of a bonus or a pay rise, and the friend is saying, but I never feel like I see that money, I don't receive the bonus. No, but future you is getting the bonus. And if only you could think what future you would be saying now, they would be blinking delighted to be getting all this money put away.
Because she's, what Sophie said to me, she says, when I get my first payment, I am going to start my pension at 21. I'm going to start putting money into the pension. And I don't know, she's got her head on her shoulders, but I've never rammed anything down her throat as to, you need to do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
Just the environment. And she's listening unintentionally listening, I suppose, and seeing it and doing it. Has her separate, I think she's a Monzo account for her rent to go in and her expenses to come out. So she's different. I can't pronounce
differentiating.
It's between her personal and her business.
Nice. Good. Her accountant will be happy with that as well.
Yes. But she is an apprentice.
Yeah, exactly. She should know. I think what I have to do actually is I produce this 4-hour video on YouTube called The Smart Woman's Ultimate Guide to Money and Investing. And it's got a spreadsheet in there. Maybe I'll share the link with you, and I'll share it with you listeners as well. Share the link with you, and you can get her to run her eye over my spreadsheet, because then she can tell me, how we could improve this spreadsheet for everyone.
I think then for the older person starting out in property, it's probably analysing and sitting down and assessing what's happening in their life regarding work, regarding have they got pensions, what their future is going to look like financially. It's just looking at the whole dynamics of what's going on in their life and deciding then for them what is the best strategy to invest in property in order to probably for them to earn better cash flow or to gain better equity in property. It's not just, they're starting at the start of their journey and they're going to need several buy-to-lets to get to the position they want to be in, if you know what I mean. 1 or 2 HMOs could do that for them in a shorter, quicker space of time. That's the way you probably have to look at it.
And also thinking about your time, you know, what job have you got? What family commitments have you got? And have you got time to, because the thing with HMOs is the greater turnover. Certainly if you go to rent, you're basically, you know, running a mini hotel. So it's thinking about all of that through. And that brings us back to one of the words that we used last interview, which was around plan. You know, whatever age you are, there is a plan to be made, and that plan doesn't have to limit. It's not stopping you having fun as a young person. It's not taking you away from your family or your hobbies or anything else. It's helping you put in place the steps that you want to live the life that you want. And I know that you've talked about Sophie and her dancing, and I've watched her journey on Instagram when you post the pictures as a proud mum, and seen her go from, you know, like this big in the pictures to like this big in the pictures. So she's like like at your waist, and now she's the same height as you. She's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And to be able to share that connection with her and to support any child doing what they're passionate about, whether you've got, you know, a child that loves a sport, or in your case, your daughter with the dancing, which is probably at sport level, you know, it's phenomenal, is such a privilege. And I mean, if you imagine the other track that you might have been on, still being a nurse, you might not have been able to do that.
I wouldn't have been able to do it. I couldn't afford to do it. And also I wouldn't have the time to go with her to competitions and to be involved in the bad days when she doesn't win or she doesn't compete well, to being involved in the days that she does really well. So yeah, it would have been a struggle. And it also probably would have, you know, impacted if we couldn't afford it, then it impacts you emotionally and impacts your relationship. And it just has lots of negatives. But yeah, property has probably allowed us to have more time, more freedom, and a little bit more money. Really, to me, time and freedom is more important to money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just amazing, you know, and property has allowed us. Now, we work really hard in property, but we still can plan that we can go on different trips or be involved in different, I can take a day off, you know, if I, you know, structure things, you know, around, you know, it's having the choice.
And what about the next 5 years? What do you see for yourself in the future?
Oh, next 5 years. Oh my goodness. I'll be 60 in the next 5 years.
Okay. Oh, I wish I could say that, Mary.
Awesome. Okay. 60-year-old has a big fear in me, but anyway.
On the other side, can I say, absolutely not. 60 is the new 30 or 40. I mean, you know, as a medical professional, that we have got such long lives ahead of us. Yeah. I just finished in July contributing a chapter to a book called Retire Inspire 2, which is all about retirement, and the fact that we had this word retirement, and 60 is so close to 65, and there's this whole, you know, negativity, all right, you know, at that tipping point, it's all downhill from there. Absolutely not. You can easily leave, even if you only go to 85, which is life expectancy. You could easily go to 95. If you go to 95, you're talking about 35 years. We go back 35 years the other way. That's your whole life all over again from the age of 25. It's a whole nother adult life. And this is why people need to be planning and thinking about their finances and everything else, because gee whiz, when you retire, that's not the end. That's the start of a whole nother life. You've got all the experience, and hopefully, instead of being with a 25-year-old's budget, you're going to be with a planned budget. Can you imagine what we can be doing? This baby boomer and you coming in behind the whatever comes after baby boomer bunch going through. We can be changing the world over the next 35 years, and hopefully, please, for the better. Please, for the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So do you still see yourself investing in property up at the age of 60?
Absolutely. Oh, I'll never leave. We were selling a lot of the properties that we made with stakes on in the first, you know, in our first four years of investment. So we're selling a lot of them to invest in bigger and better developments. And just that we want to streamline things. So we're putting a lot of money into renovations so they can last, 10, 15 years, of without revisiting them, to refurb them. Okay, we'll have to touch them up or whatever. So we're kind of selling the rubbish to put it into better investments.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it's probably more like the coaching and mentoring. For me personally, I can't see myself ever stopping that. Because it's my purpose. I want to enhance other people's lives. I want to make their lives better. They have time to create time and to give them lifestyle and
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest gift that anyone could give you is the knowledge and the confidence that you can create the life you want. And then let's summarize that everybody's going to want some form of happy life, whatever that happy life is, or a wealthy life, as I call it. That if we could help anyone, and that's all I want for these podcasts, really. This is why I have the conversations I do, is if there is just one nugget in here that makes you, that's a seed that starts to grow of an idea of what you want for a future, whether it's property, whether it's business, whether it's still to work, but you want to do some other investments on the side, whatever it is, whether it's the recognition that you need to take control of your finances, whatever it is, the possibilities. Look at Mary and I, we've been through hurdles, but we're still doing it and we love it. And the lives that we've got as a result of it, that could be yours. What better gift could you give people, And it's such an honor to be able to.
It is. It really is an honor to be part of someone's journey, and you have impacted their life. It might be a small way, it might be a big way, but you've been involved in that, and it's mind blowing, really, and sometimes you don't realize how much of a part you play in somebody's change of their life, and to me, wealth isn't money, and that's just the person I am. Money doesn't rule me. It's more about being happy, healthy, and giving back. And we feel that when you give, it comes back to you, not really that much, not always a monetary given back, it comes back to you, but it comes back to you when challenges, something always comes to resolve that challenge, in a really, really good way, what you give, you get back.
I'm so grateful that you've given me your time. I respect and value everything that you've shared. And I think this has been amazing, Mary. I'm really very, very grateful.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
We're going to make sure that in the show notes that we will put all the ways to get in touch with Mary if you have been inspired by this. And I'm sure you have. It's just a case of where and which bit for you. I also want to say thank you to the listeners, as I always do, because I'm very grateful and conscious of the time that you have shared in listening to the podcast. So let me leave you with 3 whooshes to add a bit more energy to your day. I think probably what I would take from here is that property isn't just about the bricks and the mortar and the profit. It's actually a strategy that can help you shape your future, provide you with opportunities, and if you like, a living legacy, the living legacy that Mary is working with, and her daughter, and of course Chris, and the football grounds. That's possibly the first one, that it isn't just about the money. Then maybe that there is no right or one definite way to succeed. There's your way. This is that conversation we had about the difference between men and women. So understanding that there are different ways of doing this, and we bring different things to it, but having the clarity and then the support of a community will help you get there. And then maybe that you don't have to be ready. If we go back to the start of Mary's conversation, that it isn't just about being ready and knowing all those answers, because, Mary said that she didn't know all the answers. In fact, she wasn't even sure that it was a good idea. But it's doing what you need to do to feel confident to put that next step in place. And if you're a planner, that you have a plan. And if you're a doer, that you do that first thing. So whatever that is for you. So I hope that today's episode has sparked something in you, and that you will follow that spark. Mary's story is absolute proof that the property world needs more women, more women like Mary, more women like you if you're a woman listening to this, and more men like you if you're a man listening to this episode, and share what you've learned with the women in your life to be focused, to be resourceful. I think that's a big word to come up, to be resourceful, to be ready to learn, and to know that you don't have to do it on your own. And what I really want you to do out of this is to think about what this podcast has triggered for you. What questions do you have? What insights have you already gained? What do you know now that you didn't know before? And it could be that property investment is something for you, that it's got a role in your life. It could be that you can listen to this and apply it to other areas of your life, and listening to the story of Sophie, Mary's daughter, and how she's thinking about her finances already, even at a young age. It's just, what do you want your wealthy life to be like? And what have you learnt from this nearly an hour listening to us that will make a difference for you? And I would love you to share your thoughts. We'd love to know what you got out of it. And of course, please subscribe, leave a review, because those are the breadcrumbs that other listeners can follow. Mary, you are an absolute superstar. I'm so grateful to have reached out to you again and got your time to be on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you want to subscribe and catch more episodes of The Wealthy Life, please do. Follow the show notes, because then you'll be able to go back and listen to the Chris and Mary episode if you haven't done already. There will be all the links to connect to Mary, the Belfast group, the PSU, and of course there's the link there if you want to book a call with me, if you want to get clear on your wealthy life. And make sure that you follow Mary on Instagram, and then you'll get to see these pictures of all these amazing developments that she does, and a little bit of what Sophie's up to in her international dancing career. So look, thank you again, Mary. I really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Vicki. Pleasure.